I remember there was one situation in particular, and both of you, this bloke had come up to both of you and was like, I'm gonna have sex with Katie after the show, to the boys.
You know, it's knowing and maybe learning how, as men, we can do better to respond to individuals when they say something that we know that doesn't float quite right.
Some of the themes you cover and some of the topics you go into are quite serious, for lack of a better word, and quite a few of them linked to what we talk about in the Sound campaign. Why is it that you want to create music that also touches on kind of some serious themes as well? Why is that important for you guys?
I really wanted to kind of like emulate like kind of lived experience of stuff that's kind of gone down, and like how it can be really difficult in terms of like gender and you know, stuff like nightlife and this world around us isn't necessarily a safe space. But in those themes naturally.
Do you think there's some things that we don't even consider sometimes as men, gents? What do you reckon?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, like I think at least in this band as well, since we've been going, there's been a lot of conversations we've had over the years and things that I've never really had to think about twice before. You know, it's only when you are in those environments again and then you have that sort of that fresh angle on what could be happening around you that you might not have ever clocked before.
I remember there was one situation in particular, and both of you, this bloke had come up to both of you and was like, I'm gonna have sex with Katie after the show. And then the boys came up to me and we were like, Katie, do not go near that man.
Oh my gosh.
Like, you know what I mean? It's kind of like that level of, I don't know, the boys have got my back 100%, you know what I mean?
You know, it's knowing and maybe learning how, as men, we can do better to respond to individuals when they say something that we know that doesn't float quite right. That's a big thing. Because I think a lot of men grow up within groups of other boys, and you know they all get on and they all get very very friendly and whatever, and you know it's just that having those difficult conversations with other men where you can turn around to them and say, do you know what, I don't actually think that that's okay.
Why does Sound, the campaign, resonate with you? Why did you want to have a chat with us today?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's one of those things that seems to like not necessarily get glossed over, something that you sort of forget about almost. Is like if you aren't aware of the issues that men only face, then you might just assume that everything's fine and not be able to actually highlight these issues are worth talking about.
The objectives of the campaign really line up with kind of what we're doing anyway, and you know a lot of the things go hand in hand.
In terms of like a campaign, like with men, speaking to men about, you know, issues, it's the only way things can really change.
But when people aren't Sound as, and maybe you see types of behaviour where you think, don't know, that's not quite right on my vibe of what I think is okay.
Yeah.
Do you think it is important to sound it out and say something about it?
Absolutely, because you know that person might not be aware of the full picture, and they might not be even aware that they're doing it. That's the thing. See, I feel like when people kind of make mistakes and they do like misogynistic things, sometimes I feel like men don't think that there's any redemption from that. It's like actually accepting it and, you know, changing it. That's really, really important. And, you know, like sounding it out and educating yourself on like women's issues and, you know, your place in the world. Not gonna win over hearts and minds by, I don't know, being like, all men are bad. If you're a bad man, you're like, oh, well, I'm bad. There's no redemption from that. And I think it's really important that people, you know, open those conversations up, you know?
What do you think makes a sound or a good relationship in your eyes?
Transparency, ultimately, I think. It's, you know, it's one thing if you are like affected by something and then you don't tackle it head on, or at least in a practical way. If you just manifest into something else in your life, be it like, you know, passive comments or anything like that, or just a general aversion from the topic, it doesn't then lead them to the open conversation to actually solve the problem. So I think ultimately it's just that directness, but in, you know, in a productive way as well, and really just knowing how to manage a conversation.
Sound it out.
Get sound advice.
Be sound as.